What's up, my loves and fellow creatives? This is going to be a very short and simple version of how to use this template. I'm going to demonstrate how you will pull in your image from your design, replace the current image, export these tiles, and print. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show you how to do is how to pull your design over. Now, at the end of this video, I will go over where my free blank templates are for all of the sizes for adults, all the way down to toddler and infant. But for right now, I'm going to show you what you would do if you already have your design ready. If you're familiar with the the Innate Academy, you know that we have several templates, several classes. This one happens to be a specific course. I believe it is like 110, not certain, but let's go ahead and use this as if we had finished the design and we want to split it up now, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the guides and I'm just going to go ahead and export this or save as. So I'm going to do save as. And if I save it as, yeah, this is 109, just to let you know. Let's go ahead and save it. I'm going to save it in the folder with my all over right now, just so you can get that idea. And this one is the version 22, which means it's going to work with the most recent version of Photoshop. And I'm just going to name this art right now. And I'm going to go ahead and just save it as a flattened version. You want it to be as simple as possible, so when you bring it into your split template, you're just taking that flat image and splitting it up with an overlap. So you can save it as a JPEG. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. But you can also save it as a PNG. Some of you prefer to save as a PNG. File, save as. Oh, it's still working. Here we go. File, save as. And we can save this as a PNG. And I will save this as art. PNG. Just to show you that you can save in either of those formats. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off any file that I have open, so that all I'm worried about is my split template now. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of these files. And I just have my split template open. You'll notice that there are about 7 different templates. Each set represents a certain number of sizes that can fit within the minimal number of pages. So I've done all the work to try to get every size optimized to the least number of pages to fit a group of shirt sizes. So the most common one that you're going to use is the small, medium, large. That's the adult. And let's see if we can get this done in less than 5 minutes. We're going to double click on the image here, and I'll tell you why it's red in a moment. We're going to double click on the image here. It's a smart object. It pops open in a new tab. Then we're going to select the current art layer. We're going to drag in our image. So wherever your image is in the folder, I'll show you my folder here. I'm going to literally drag it and drop it like it's hot right there. Okay, now see how it went above my image? I'm going to pull this up just a little bit so I get a full bleed there. And then I'm going to hit enter to lock in my transformation. Take the artwork, drop it below the existing artwork. See how it has that little arrow now? That means it's clipped down to this layer down here. And then I can turn off my example art there, and then I will turn off my guidelines. And of course you can turn off the website there. And if you want to turn back on your guidelines, make sure nothing important is getting cut off, just to check for your bleed area and everything. Everything looks good. All right, once you do all that, you're going to save this. This is a smart object. So you can save it by going to File, Save. You can do Control S on a Mac, on a PC, and Command S if you're on a Mac. Okay, so we're going to save it. Now what saving it allows it to do, this is the same thing here, we're saving it. It is now going to update into your split template file. See how it automatically changed the art? Now the reason why it's red is because I do not want you to touch anything in these folders, because just moving something slightly will throw things off. So we're going to pretend like these layers right here are 20-year-old medical bills. No need to open them. They can't touch us. We don't want to touch it. So just leave it be, you know? So let's just only focus on this top layer here, okay? So the only reason why it's red is so that you can test it and make certain that you did not move anything below here. So I am going to make sure I have my top group selected. I'm going to turn my opacity down. And all I'm checking for is to see if everything lines up, it looks good. I don't see any kind of shifting. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you open this up and you move something. All of a sudden things don't line up. You see how it looks like it's kind of a weird shadowed effect? And that's because we moved something that we did not intend to move. So that's why we won't even mess with anything in this layer. I'm going to go ahead and undo what just happened. I'm going to close it up like I never opened it. So that's just a warning to you. Just don't worry about what's in these folders. Just only focus on this top layer, okay? Now, once you have identified by turning down the opacity that everything's good, this is just a check system for you. All right, so now I'm going to turn my opacity all the way back up so it'll be ready for the next time I use the template. And then I'm going to turn the eyeball off, turn that visibility off for this top group, okay? Because you don't want to print that red. You want to turn that off. All right, now the very next step is you're going to go to File, Export. We're going to go to export the artboard to files. We're going to choose what folder it goes into. So I'm going to make a folder inside of here, and I'm going to call this the adult small to large. And I want it to go inside of this folder. So the tiles that fit the adult small to large are going to go inside of that folder. And then for the prefix here, same thing. I'm going to put adult small to large. That's just my naming preference. And then what it will do is it will save the remainder of the, and I'll put a dash after this. So it will save the remainder of the name of this group. It'll save it right after it. So then that way it'll be an easy way for you to understand what it is that you need to print. All right, so I want to make sure that you understand these settings here. So if you did it exactly as we did it before, then you're going to make sure that artboard content only is selected and that it is deselected for export selected artboards. Deselected means that it's not going to be checked off, okay? And the way that you want to save this is, my preference is to save it as a JPEG. I usually turn on my export options and crank the quality all the way up to 12 so I get the highest quality. And I do include the ICC profile just because I like to make sure that that's consistent across my files. And then all I'm going to do now is hit run. I'm going to be patient as the computer does the processing right now. I'm not going to touch anything or do anything extra. All right, and in just a few moments, it tells us that the artboard to files was successful. And we're just going to check that. We're going to go to the folder. And remember, I told you I made a special folder where these images would sit inside. And let me go ahead and do, let's view extra large icons here. All right, so now you see that you have your 4 tiles. And just so you know that you have overlap here, You're going to do some trimming, of course, but it's already set up for you to have a considerable amount of overlap, but not too much, because too much overlap leaves you to have uneven pressure. So you have just enough overlap to trim the white off of the edge of the prints wherever you're going to overlap, but still have enough image to where you won't be missing anything significant. Okay, so if you notice here, we see his ear and the top of the hair there. We have a little piece of that ear and the top of the hair there. So we have just enough overlap. That corner of that eye is showing over here. You see that? We have just enough overlap to make that work. And of course, you'll follow the video that accompanies this course to see how you'll do the full-on print, trim, taping it together and pressing it on the board if that's the process that you want to go through. For this one, it will be available as the secondary video. I just wanted to do a quick video to show you all just how to use the slicer, and then I'm going to show you how to print these too. So let me go back to this folder. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here. All right. So in order to open these up to print, I am not going to print from the tile program or from the tile template. I'm going to strictly print the JPEG pieces that I made. So I can go ahead and select all of these. And in order to open them in Photoshop, here's a quick thing you can do. You can hover them right over the tab here to open it. Or you can go File, Open, find the location of this folder, and open them that way. I just like to show you all little shortcuts whenever I can. Now what should happen is it should be opening these files in tabs here. And oh, it's uploading to my cloud. So let me go ahead and just open them the old-fashioned way. Let's go to my folder. And if I hold down Shift, it'll select everything from the first one to the last one. I want to open them all up right now. Okay, so now I have the top right, the top left, the bottom right, and the bottom left. And this is what I would do. I would go to File, Print, and then I have the settings set up right now for the 16650. And I have a video that shows you completely how to calibrate your monitors, how to set up your printer, and also how to make sure you choose the appropriate Photoshop settings for your color management so you get consistent results with the coloring, and make sure this will mirror image everything. You don't have to do this over and over again. If you set it up right the first time, it will permanently be your settings. So I'm going to show you when I print to my 16650. Of course, this one, I have several settings. I'm going to go to my 13 by 19 True Colors. True Colors is the name of the ink that I use and sell, and Innate is are the settings that I use. So for my settings, I'm going to briefly go through what the settings are, but I really want you to look up Calibrate, and I'll post a link for that video too, because it tells you exactly how to set up your printer so that these settings are your default settings. All right, so I use the paper tray for mine, for the 13 by 19 paper size. The paper quality is just plain paper. I don't want it to lay down too much ink. And then I put the quality on high here. Of course, the color is set on here. And then the next setting that I do, I'm going to go to more options. I'm going to go to my custom color correction here, go to advanced, and I'm going to make sure that I select no color adjustment. It is necessary to select no color adjustment so the printer is not trying to figure out my sublimation colors. I am allowing Photoshop to do the heavy lifting for my color adjustment. Okay, so that's why I have that turned off. And then I also have bidirectional printing. You probably won't have that option depending on what printer you have. So I have that turned on so it prints faster. And then of course mirror image is selected. Now, what you can do at this point in time, if these are the settings that you're going to use and you haven't already set up your printer for default, then you can add or remove a preset. And right now it's called 13 by 19. I'm going to show you what you would do. Just type in 13 by 19. I usually put the type of ink that I'm using, so I'm going to put true because that's the ink. And then Innate is the printer settings for the video, and then sub is for sublimation. And I'll just type sublimation. All right, now if you want to save this as a setting that you can use over and over again, you want to make sure that you hit the save button here. And see, now it is a brand new option that I have. And if I want to make sure that it uses these settings, I can select it by highlighting it here, hit OK, and then my preview is going to change based on those settings. And if you notice, I want you to see here, you see how you have a little bit of white outside of all of this area? That's going to be where your image is going to need to be trimmed because you're not printing to the edge of the paper. You're going to save yourself some heartache because if you print to the edge of the paper, it's likely that you're going to have bleeding and issues with printing back to back, and that won't necessarily be productive for you. So I like to leave this little thin margin on here and just trim. And to be honest, you only have to trim the parts that you're overlapping. So you might have to trim up here to the top and here to the inside. You don't have to trim the bottom. You don't have to trim this outside because that's in your bleed area. So of course, you'll learn a little bit more about that on the section where we do the printing and the trimming and the taping. Okay, so here I would just go ahead and hit print, and this would send this image to my printer. And the great thing about it is when I hit print, it's going to tell me that the clipping will occur. You're going to want to hit proceed. When this starts to print, it'll tell me it's printing the bottom left. So if anything happens to that file, let's say it stops in the middle of the print, if I'm doing like my 72 or my 7710 or 20, and it just happens to stop in the middle of the print, it will tell me the bottom left is the one that messed up. So I know exactly which tile to print. So you would do the same exact thing for the other tiles. The only difference now with the top tiles, they're rotated. So when I go to File, Print, I'm going to choose the same settings. So I'm going to go to my print settings, make sure that it's on the one that I just created. And of course, if you follow the free video that I have that tells you how to set up your printer with the ink, that will tell you how to set this as default. You will not have to click this every single time. And that will be a time saver and a mental saver for you because you won't have to worry about, dang, did I mirror image that one? Or, did I set it on the proper paper type or the quality or the paper size? You won't have to worry about those details because it would already be locked in. I just happen to check it every time just to be safe. All right, so here I'm going to hit OK. And of course, it's got this portrait orientation here. So all I'm going to do is hit the landscape orientation or layout, and that's it. Now for the color handling, this is what I forgot to just mention. I wanted to reiterate that you're going to let Photoshop manage the color, and the printer profile is typically going to be your Epson Inkjet Printer 07. That is one of the default settings, and it works really well for most Epson Inkjet printers. Now I leave it on normal printing here and relative colorimetric for my rendering intent, and I do have the black point compensation checked off. You don't want to do anything down here as far as scaling or anything else. Just leave that stuff alone because if you scale it at all, it will throw off your results. So again here I would hit print, and this one would print landscape orientation. I would do the same thing for the other top print, and I would have all 4 pieces, and my next step would be to trim it, trim all the white off, make sure I leave no white, and then I just trim real close to it, real neat, and then you will use these layers to overlap and give you just the perfect amount of overlap to where it's not too much where it leaves an indentation in the shirt, and it's just enough to where you can overlap and you're not missing pieces of your image. So you're not missing half of an eye because you trimmed it off. Okay, if you follow this little trim line here, you'll be great. All right, so again, I would press print here. It will tell me that it's going to trim or clip the edges of the image, and that's fine because we've already accounted for that. So I would go ahead and tell it to proceed, let it print, and that's it. It is really that simple. So what I'm going to do now, that is the extent of how you use this split template. That's it. That's how you bring in your image. That's how you export your files. That's how you print those files. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is just go through the other templates just to kind of show you that they have different number of pages that are required to print those. And most importantly, the one that I want to show is the adult extra large and 2X. And the reason why is because I know some people are concerned that it looks weird because it looks like one of the sleeves is completely gone, but it's only because it's that top layer. However, if you really follow the steps that I told you for turning on and off that red layer at the top, you'll know exactly where that other piece of the sleeve is. So I'm just going to demonstrate that so no one's missing out. So it might look like it's a little bit off, but the reason why it's done this way is because originally this would have taken up 7 sheets of paper, but I was able to get it down to 6 sheets of paper, and I will show you why. So the first thing we'll do is we'll open up the top group only. That's the only one that you're going to mess with. And I'm going to double click on the artwork. I'm going to select my current artwork and then drag my new artwork right on top of everything. All right, looks good. I'm going to hit enter to lock in the transformation for that size. And then I'm going to drag the art right below. And let me show you. I'm going to go back a moment just to show you. You see that double blue line? That's where it lets me know that I'm right in between something. If you drop it here, it will go inside of that folder. That's not what you want. If that happens, pull it right between the folder and the existing artwork, and it'll clip right down for you. So I'm going to turn off the old artwork and turn off my guidelines. I will also turn off the website there. This looks good, everything in place, ready to go. Now I can do File, Save. I can do Control S to save. Or when I close out of here, I can say, yes, I want to save this. Any one of those techniques, or you can do Command S if you're on a Mac. That's how you're going to save. When I close out of this, it's going to update my art here. Now, of course, you're not going to print this red. Of course, it looks a little goofy because it's missing a piece right here. So I'm going to do my check step. My check step is to bring down my opacity here, and then automatically you'll see the sleeve pop up. And I can see that nothing is ghosted. It doesn't look funny. It doesn't look like I moved anything because I didn't touch this. Okay? I need to reiterate, pretend like MC Hammer is telling you that you can't touch this, okay? Don't mess with anything down here. We're going to keep everything that we mess with right in one simple layer. Now that I've checked to see if everything's matched up, I'm going to bring my opacity all the way back up so it reminds me, do not print this red. Turn that eyeball off for the red. And there I have only 6 tiles to do a 2X, rather than if you were using the Adobe Acrobat version of the tiler, it will make you use 8 sheets for this process. So I really did do my best to make sure that we had an optimal setup. So you're using less ink, less paper, and getting a really clean process. All right, so back to work. Let's go to File. We're going to export. export the artboard to files. I'll choose the folder here. Now this time, instead of adult, small, to large, I'm going to make a new folder and call this one Adult XL to 2X. And I'm just copying that because I'm going to save the file as the same. And this is just telling the program where I want to export these files when they are complete. All right, for the file name prefix, please take this long name off and do something a bit shorter. And then, like I said, I'll put like a dash or something to distinguish when the group name is going to start there. So I made sure that artboard content only is selected. Now this is going to be off by default because if you look, the only thing that I have selected is this top one. I haven't messed with these. So export selected artboard should be off by default. If it's not, make sure that you uncheck that, okay? Also, the file type is JPEG. I have my export options turned on. My quality is cranked to 12 and run it. All right, that is a good sign. When you hear that noise, that means it's done. I'm just going to go ahead and check here. I'm checking my folder. I'm checking the XL to 2XL, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles. And I'm going to go ahead and open these up in Photoshop. The print process will be the same exact thing that I just showed you. So what I do is I print all of my tall pages first, all of my portrait size pages or portrait orientation pages. And then after I print all of my tall ones, and all of these are tall, so we don't have to worry about changing to the landscape orientation because all of these are tall. And that's it. I would print those the same way I showed you before. So I just really wanted to show you this one because this one is a little tricky when you first look at it, but I don't want you to get intimidated. I want to go ahead and give you the real. It's not that difficult. It's just a matter of saving that 1 or 2, actually 2 extra sheets of paper. So this was a little compromise here, a little trickery, but it does the trick. All right, so I'm going to turn this back on so the next time I open this template, I'm definitely going to see the red there. So it will remind me, red is a warning. Don't print this. Make sure that you edit your artwork, turn this layer off, and then you will do your exporting. You will print from the exported files. You will not print from this template file. All right, so that is it. I have a full video where I go through every single size and version of this. It's attached to the YouTube video below, so make sure that you check that out. If you want to really go through every single size just because it makes you more comfortable, we've done that, and we did it live so that any questions that anyone had, I was addressing those questions in the moment. But this is a full review of how to use the template, the split template, automatic tile, insta slice, magic. All of those things. All right, so there was one more thing that I did want to show you. Some of you are saying, well, where do I design the shirt? You do not want to design the shirt inside of the tile template. This tile template is rather large already. So when you design your shirt, you're going to use, and I'll show you. We'll pull up this free template that I have on the website. I have one for the adult small to 3XL. I have one for the 4X and 5X for adults. And then I have a set for youth, toddler, and infant. So you will, in order to get to those, I'm going to put the link at the bottom of this module as well, so you'll know where you can get these free templates. But the free templates, if I were to turn everything off here, these are just guidelines, little things that you can play with because I don't want to leave you empty-handed. I want you to kind of open this Photoshop file with some type of understanding of what design features you can use. But quite literally, all that matters is that you have these top two layers and they're locked so that you won't mistakenly move them around or anything. But if you design on below these layers and then you can turn them off to save this file, this will be your best bet. Now I'm going to turn on the bottom layer just for a second. I want you to keep an eye on this special dotted area right here. This is your text and photo save area. So I don't care if you have things bleeding all off of everywhere around the shirt. If you keep the main part of your image, which is the text, and the main parts of the photo, which would be the faces or important areas that you don't want to get cut off, keep that inside of the dotted line. Everything else can kind of bleed off. And I build for the smaller shirt, so I make sure everything important is in here. That means for the smaller shirt it's going to work, and for the larger shirt it's going to work. And then I just make the rest of my design bleed off. So if you need that resource, you design, if you're going to design from scratch. We also showed you one of the templates we're working on. This is from class number 109, so you would actually get this template with the class. So you could design in this template, and then when you're getting ready to pull it into the automatic split file, you just simply turn off these guide layers, pretty much let it look like a full wallpaper, and then just file, save as. You can save it as a JPEG. It's going to give you an option. Make sure you save it as the maximum quality. So crank it up to 12, hit OK there. And then of course, this is that file, that art file. And this is what we bring into the Smart object for the template. So I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to double click on the Smart object. I'm going to turn off this existing one, pretend like this one was still there. I'm going to select my top layer where it has the artwork, and I'm going to drag and drop that artwork in. Then I'm going to pull it down underneath the existing art and turn off the existing art. So it really is that simple. Just switch the artwork out, save it, or when you exit out of this, just hit yes to save it, and it will update to the split template. So make sure that you're designing in your design template, that you save it as a flat image so it won't be a large file for no reason. And then you're going to bring that flat image into this file by replacing the image on that the Smart object. That's it. And if you need to replay it over and over again till you get it. Once you do this 1, 2, maybe 3 times, you will pretty much just be automatically opening the Smart object, replacing the art, saving it, boom, exporting it, boom, printing it, boom. And then the rest is a little bit more difficult. the trimming and the taping up and that sort of thing. But to get the all over effect with a 13 by 19 printer and a 16 by 20 press is really a game changer for a lot of folks. So that's why we came up with this solution. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here so we can upload this, and you'll have this before we do the workshop where we will be physically using the split template. Then we will be printing the tiles, trimming them, putting them together, taping them, and then pressing them on the big board. Okay, so if you're interested in that process, we will periodically have live classes or workshops where we do that process. And of course, the video for that will be provided for you as well, so you can watch the recap of that. All right, loves, as always, I love y'all for real, and bye.